Another LinkedIn Live. I'm excited to talk with everyone today. Today we're talking about the future of PhD workforce and careers with the one and only Roshni Rao. Roshni is the executive director of doctoral and postdoc career design at Johns Hopkins University. So Roshni, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I'm glad to be here. Hi, everyone.
My My pleasure. Roshni is also one of our industry advisory board members who is helping us and will be continue to help us in the future on some career design for our talent lab platforms. So equally excited to kind of share that and have you work with us, and very grateful for the time you're investing in what we're trying to create here for hopefully for your students and many other PhDs that are out there in the workforce.
My pleasure.
So today, talking about PhD careers, I know that that's a topic that is one of a lot of people's minds. The market's kind of fluctuating, so careers, what careers are out there, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I'm excited to talk to you because that's the area you live in every day. Why don't we start with you though, Roshni? Can you tell us a little bit about you and your kind of your journey and kind of what you're doing now?
Sure. So I came here as an international student for my own PhD in biomedical sciences, and I studied immunology. And then the only other option that I was told was available was a postdoc, which I did. So I came to the US Food and Drug Administration, and I did a immunology postdoc for about 4 years. And from there, I hadn't really articulated for one time what I wanted to do in the future, because I saw everyone else ahead of me, other postdocs and other PhD students, either go to do postdocs and the academic market or go and do med school. So it only came to a point at one point, fourth year of my postdoc, where I had a baby, and now I had to quickly decide what I wanted to do with my future, because my values didn't align too much with my aspirations. So, and where I was in life with my baby. So at that point is when I dove into really emergency mode, self-educating on what career options might be out there. Really talking to people, reaching out on LinkedIn. I didn't even have a LinkedIn profile in about 2017.
Mhm.
I Googled how to get a job, and LinkedIn was popping up a couple of times. And so I really dove into that aspect. And while I was at the FDA, it was such a good resource of other folks who were walking those different paths. So I was able to chat with those people, and that's when I learned the term informational interview. Things that I teach other people to do now, I really had to learn it in a very condensed and fast way myself, and lean on folks, strangers, who then became mentors along the way. And so for me at that point, a couple of things happened. I went through like a very intuitive design thinking process of what are my skills, values. I brainstormed a couple of options with the limitations of having sort of being an international scholar. And I ended up on a couple of different choices. I could have done consulting on one hand, I could have done what I do now on the other hand. And it's just, for any PhD folks out here, I didn't even know my job existed until I saw a job ad. So I didn't know universities had career offices until I applied for it. And I ended up at the NIH. And from there, I spent about a year and a half at the NIA, National Institute on Aging, and then had the opportunity for this advertisement of growing your own PhD career office at Hopkins. And I jumped at that opportunity. And they say what they say, rest is history. So we've been
The
doing
rest
this
is
for,
history.
yeah, the last 4 years.
That's a great story. You know what stands out to me, Roshni, is um, I'm hearing an entrepreneur talk right now. I mean,
Yeah.
you can define that different ways, but basically, you basically created your own career path unknowingly, like, and it started with your own personal problem. So your own
Mhm.
personal kind of discovery and solving a problem for yourself sounds like it turned into realizing like, hey, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people who are trying
Yep.
to figure this out just like I was. I mean, how big was that into kind of feeling that kind of passion in you?
100%, because when I drilled it down to what I really identified as my values, it was I want to help people in the way that I was struggling and didn't have the help that I could have I could have really used at that point. I didn't have a network, having just been in the country for the last 5-6 years of my PhD and my postdoc. I didn't really automatically come with a large connection system or a set of mentors. So I really wanted to make that possible for, what we just gave out of 57,000 PhDs this last year across the US. So many folks, according to the NSF data. I wanted to make an impact in that way. And I had ideas. I had a lot of ideas of how we could do that. And I didn't have a playbook for how to do it, but I at least had the foundation at Hopkins, because in the space that we have at Hopkins, we're able to innovate, we're able to fail, we're able to come up with these big ideas and go try them out in the true essence of design thinking. So I think had I not been in that space, it would have been a little bit more difficult to execute. So in that way, I think that's helped as well, is being in the right environment to nurture those ideas, those connections.
Yeah, I've watched your journey over the past 4 years or so at Hopkins, and even just the evolution of the career kind of department there. You've brought up a couple design thinking a few times. I don't know if that's a term that a lot of people think about when they think about their career. Could you kind of talk to that a little bit? Like, was that something that did you take a class at FDA, or how
No,
did that kind of work into your process?
just like I didn't know my job existed, I didn't know what design thinking was until I came to Johns Hopkins and happened to be in the Department of Integrative Learning and Life Design. So I had to learn what that was. But I'll say the latter part and come back to it. But when I learned what it was such an intuitive process to problem solving that I had just employed as a postdoc. So I immediately understood it. And for those who are wondering, like, what do you mean by that? In the design thinking process, when designers are putting a product to market, they have to go through a couple of steps, which include these different mindsets, being able to reframe some dysfunctional beliefs or ungenerative and unhelpful beliefs, being able to collaborate with a wide variety of people, being curious. These are aspects that make the design thinking process wonderful and great. So for me, during my career journey, I had to go through a couple of steps. One was accepting where I was. I didn't know what career aspirations and what options were available for me. And that phase in the design thinking process is really accepting where I am. And next is empathizing with the situation, me being the user in this case, because design thinking is a user-centric process. So me being the user in this case, I had to really empathize with what I had, what I didn't have, why, really be kind and compassionate, and really focus on getting data on myself. And then I had to define the problem. And the problem was, how do I, with a PhD in so-and-so degree, apply my skills to making an impact or contributing to the world? And that whole process, I'd done that very naturally, being curious, talking to people, asking good questions, being open-minded about the different possibilities, which is that whole design thinking process. Then I ideated and prototyped my career. I had consulting interviews. I had an interview, in biotech, macrogenics. It was for a communicator role. I did terribly at that. I would have not hired myself. And then I learned from those failures how to interview better. So those skills that I learned, now I could teach other people. And so I think I
love
went
that.
through
And
that process.
yeah, that's incredible. And one of the things that I love about that too is what I see sometimes is people resist the exploration phase. Like,
Yeah,
let me test my hypothesis. So
right.
they might not go and interview for positions that they don't quite know about, or they might not take that approach. So instead, they just stay in this kind of narrow focus instead of saying, well, let me ideate and let me look at the field
Yeah,
and see, because there are a lot of different paths out there.
yeah,
But I love that you were like, hey, I went and tested, tested these options.
yeah. And I think,
So
Chris, it's
like,
scientist brain too. It's not just designer brain. I think that's what we do as scientists. We have the
mhm,
hypothesis. We're experimenting. Our experiments fail. We take lessons from those experiments, and then we apply them to developing results and outcomes. I think at that time it may have been a scientific approach more so than knowing what
yeah,
design thinking
more than
was. I just have a framework now in my work, but that's what it
yeah.
was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. But sometimes it's hard for it's easier to apply that to the research you're doing
Mm,
on the bench
yeah,
or data science, wherever you're doing it, right?
yeah.
But sometimes it's a little harder to take that same approach with your career, which seems very definitive, right? It seems like decisions you make have much longer term things. So again, I think that I agree that there's very much a scientific approach to it.
Mm,
And and you might be sharing that that's kind of what you do is you help people take that scientific approach now and apply it to their career. So I guess with that as a transition point, tell us about your work that you're doing now. I mean, you started off at Hopkins. You mentioned the ad was create. You kind of came in to create a department that was the Futures department
yes.
with Futures
Yes,
department.
and interestingly,
So tell us about some of yeah. Tell us what that's about.
yeah, I mean, it was just funny. Interestingly, it was the name that caught my attention. I wasn't even looking.
Hmm.
I was just browsing jobs for other people on LinkedIn and doing my due diligence and research and learning about career paths while I was helping postdocs at the
Hmm.
NIH. And that was the name that caught my attention. PH
Yeah.
Futures, like it was interesting. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it was a very well written job description. And I tell students now, like, the magic of well written job descriptions, it tells you a lot about where you're going because it's
Mm.
detailed, beautifully done. All hats off to my to my boss Farouk Day, who wrote the job description. But a lot of detail to it, a lot of it was a vision. I was very clear, and I was really drawn by that vision. Like, if you want to hire people, then you want to paint the picture for them so they're interested in the job.
Hmm.
So that was what drew me to that role. And
We could have a whole discussion and just into that as well. I coach clients on that all the time. So
yeah,
kudos to your boss.
yeah, it's so important and really appealing. And yeah, I didn't know what to expect. And so what we do here at Hopkins is we're a career connection hub, and there are different arms to what we do. There's the educational component, there's the internships and experiential component, there's the alumni connections and mentoring piece. There are what we don't traditionally think of career services. There's that community aspect where we're bringing people together so that they feel engaged, so that they engage in conversations and opportunities that we're providing to them, so that that's community piece that we have. And then there are the goal of this particular department was very different from what I was used to traditionally. And it was about scalable programs, being able to reach a wide number of folks, because we're serving not just biomedical sciences, but we're serving engineering, humanities, social science, education. And you cannot see 8,000 folks one on one and help each person to that level
Hmm.
of depth. So that was new and something that I had to learn about scalable and being impactful at the same time. So we had conferences that we had to create as well at Hopkins. Now we have affinity-based conferences, but we had larger conferences. So it's been a lesson in creativity and innovative ideas and putting that to practice and testing it out. And what was more interesting is it was done during the pandemic, because the office started in
Hmm.
2020 January, and by March we were doing this in a pandemic. So in a way, while everything was shut down, perhaps it was a good way for us to reach a larger audience using sort of social media and talking to
Yeah.
the students and letting them know that we're here. I think that helped us a little bit more in establishing the office. So that was my experience
Well,
building it.
from someone who in 2017 didn't know what LinkedIn is, I just got to give you credit because your LinkedIn game when you were have been at Hopkins has just been on point,
Thank you.
and you've really so someone again in just a couple of years, and I'm impressed by the content you share, and you
Mm,
can tell there's a lot of thought that goes into it. You can tell who you're speaking to, who your audience is, and you can tell that there is you mentioned empathy. You can tell there's an understanding of the challenges that your audience and your populations that you're talking to are facing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
again, I've always been impressed by that, and like I said, I've been a fan. I've seen the program evolve and a lot of the programs that you've put on, and again, I think from the outside in, you guys are doing something different,
Mm,
right? You were shaking up the traditional model of career services, that had to be exciting just to be able to shake that up and to really create this kind of future-looking, the future-looking, platform.
Yeah.
It's become a platform, not a department,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one thing to folks who want to put stuff out there on LinkedIn or social media, I had a rule for myself, which is if I do say anything, it's from a standpoint of adding value to the community. Again,
Mhm,
going back to the whole idea that folks are hungry for this kind of information because they don't have the access to that kind of information,
mhm,
perhaps, or they don't have the connections. So if I were to say something, I was going to do it authentically, and I was going to do it to add value. Otherwise, I'm not saying anything. And it took me a while,
yeah,
with I didn't say anything. I had LinkedIn in 2017, but I didn't write a single line of a post until 2020, 2019. So it took a while to observe, watch, and then find my
mhm,
voice, which a lot of people wonder, how do I find my voice? Well, it takes time to develop that. And the
mhm,
safety of being able to do that when I couldn't do it as a grad student or a postdoc, I can now do it as an
right,
advocate for grad students and postdocs. I think that has
yeah,
helped with sort of the visibility, of course, and
mhm,
sharing what we do a little bit more broadly.
yeah. So what are some of the things you're now the executive director for doctoral and postdoctoral career design.
Mm.
What are some of the things that you're doing in your program now? Especially kind of as if you look at careers of the future and careers that you're trying to address for your audience. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the programming or some of the ways you're impacting your population?
Yeah, I'll highlight a couple of standout pieces, and this, I'll give a shout out to there's two career offices actually. There's two campuses, so we have a Homewood campus and we have like a East Baltimore campus. And the East Baltimore is associated with the School of Medicine and Public Health. So one standout program from that particular office, professional development career office, is something called the Options program, which is an integrated career curriculum that has a partnership with departments. So if you're a graduate student in those departments, which are primarily biomedical sciences, you mandatorily have to take career courses for 2 years of your PhD. That's a game
Hmm.
changer because you're not just offering one-off panels or resume workshops. It's integrated into the curriculum, which changes the entire narrative about what is
Hmm.
important and what career paths are important. It gives those students additional exposure and an additional advantage to be able to feel empowered that they're making those decisions by the time they graduate. And we've
Yeah.
piloted a couple of similar programs on the other campus as well, and same result and outcome is that people felt in the beginning that they had absolutely no knowledge. That flipped to from like 17% to like 64%, that they now felt at least they were aware of different career options, because usually it's the
Hmm.
binary industry or academia. But this exposes
Hmm.
them to a lot more career options. So that's one standout program. I'll say one of
That's
the
great.
important things that we should be thinking about future looking is really skill building. Our PhDs and postdocs are
Hmm.
very smart at what they do. They're experts at their research. But are they able to communicate and articulate their skills? Because communication is such a key. It doesn't matter what job, what industry, you're going to find a couple of things that are s- repeating across different jobs and different sectors. Communication being one of them, and collaboration being another, and leadership skills. So one thing that we run
Hmm.
is a contest called Empire Pitch, which was based on the popular 3-minute thesis contest that has run for the past so many years. But we changed it at Hopkins. We made it so that it wasn't so rigid and restrictive. We made it so that it encouraged creativity and it aligned with what modern scientific communication looks like, which is TikTok videos and LinkedIn videos and YouTube. So we gave them the freedom and the creativity to go ahead and pitch your research in any way that you feel you want to pitch it, whether that's through drama, music, rap. And we did see creativity shoot up. We saw a lot of changes in terms of demographics of people winning the contest. We changed the way the contest was assessed. So that people didn't feel like if they weren't naturally good speakers that they couldn't participate, because we changed it on content rather than eye contact, which is not necessarily the same for neurodiverse folks. So we really gutted it from a DEI standpoint. And again, it was an experiment. Let's see what if we change a couple of things, what is the result? And if it doesn't work, that's okay. We'll change it again. And then
Right.
another third standout thing was our Horizons by Hopkins conference that we offer, that now is attended by students from 43 countries because it's completely free and completely virtual. And then we have like celebrities as keynote speakers. And we do have people say, what has comedian Trevor Noah have to do with PhD careers? And bringing people like that to headline our conferences shines a spotlight on the work that we do and the narrative. And so that's the connection of bringing these like out of the box kind of speakers as role models of what's out there in society, and how you don't have to think of the traditional, you can sort of design your own pathway. So I think those are some of the standout stuff we do, including internships and experiential learning opportunities that we're ramping up in a big way going forward as well.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, bringing people outside of, a traditional industry in, that, I mean, from a diversity standpoint, isn't that where like you get creativity, like it shows, all the evidence shows the more diverse your population, the more creative and the more innovative you can be.
Yep.
And I think, one area of diversity is just diversity of your background. Like, bringing a comedian is going to give a different perspective on something that could change the way you look at something.
Yep. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And we've seen it. I like to give the example of during the pandemic, I've developed an obsession with doing escape rooms. And my family and I, which comprise of me, my partner, and my 7-year-old child, who was 3 when we started doing escape rooms. We have done 70 escape rooms at this point. And
Wow.
we have a success rate of like 40% because, I mean, it's a 3-year-old and 2 adults. But then when I bring my teams to do escape rooms, which comprise of a PhD in chemistry, neuroscience, I don't know, like a humanist, and my child and their boyfriend and this and that, rooms that have escape rate of like only 30%, we finished in like 45 minutes. And that's only because of the diversity in the room and the
Mm-hmm.
diversity of thinking. And that's how you solve problems, is you focus on different people and their experiences. You put them in a room and you solve a puzzle. So that's
Yeah.
completely off, but my obsession with escape.
That's not completely off. I mean, I think it's translatable to, I mean, at work every day, sometimes I feel like I'm in an escape room. So any recommendations for a good one around Baltimore or Maryland area that people should check out?
I'll say don't go to the ones in Arundel Mall. They all are terrible. But ones in Frederick are really good. Frederick, Maryland. And Frederick's really nice too if you want to step outside of Baltimore for a bit. But
I like
Charm
Frederick.
City,
Frederick's a
like
great area.
Clue Room, you have that in Power Plant. There has some good rooms as well.
Yeah.
Tough, but good rooms.
Well, hopefully our audience can check some of those out. So tell us a little bit about, speaking of challenges and things, you're ramping up experiential learning, you're ramping up internships and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
What are you hearing from the PhDs that you work with about what they're thinking about now with the future? Obviously, as we talked about, the market's changing. We have all this integrated disciplines, happening in the market, rise of AI and automation, data science. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what trends you're seeing and also maybe why you're ramping up the experiential learning piece so much?
Yes. Yes. So I'll talk about why we're ramping up the experiential piece so much, because we see that folks who do internships, again, that's a way of getting exposure. They are more likely to make empowered decisions about their careers. And also, it's 2 birds in 1 stone. When they do internships, they gain those connections, those meaningful connections, and then translate into long-term full-time hires as well. Students are asking for career fairs, internships, experiential learning opportunities so that they can diversify their resumes. Because when they're looking at the job description, and they are seeing that those descriptions need about 2 to 3 years of industry experience. I, when you're doing a PhD, there's no possible way you would have had 2 to 3 years of industry experience. And so, in order to be competitive and in order to have a little bit of an edge, those internship opportunities help. I always say you don't have to do an internship to get a full-time job. It's not mandatory, so don't stress too much if you don't get the opportunity to do one. But when you do, and when we in our job is to create those opportunities, we definitely see great outcomes in terms of satisfaction, in terms of it converting into full-time hires. And at the end of the day, I always say this to my team: no matter how many educational opportunities we offer, which are great and are foundational, the end of the day, when they're graduating, they want a job. So how can we empower them to be competitive on the market? But what we're seeing is they're asking for this as well. And we're seeing attendance and engagement really skyrocket when we present those opportunities to them in form of networking events, bringing companies to campus, having an info session with them, an opportunity to connect and network. That has been gold. That has been like highest rated events so far. And bringing our alumni partners and alumni, our doctoral alumni, who happen to also be hiring managers at these various industries, that is also, gold connection. Like, we have only tapped the surface of the potential that we have with our alumni and our employer partners.
Yeah.
In terms of the future, we're seeing a lot of interdisciplinary skills and the requirements for data science and biotech, not just data science in tech. So for the life sciences, we're seeing folks ramping up their skills in Python, MATLAB, R. People who are more competitive have coding background. People who are more versatile have AI and sort of machine learning backgrounds as well. So those skills are going to be obviously the next few years, it's going to skyrocket. So we're seeing interdisciplinary aspects come into play. But also, I'd say a lot of our students, particularly, are interested in entrepreneurship. They are building and founding companies at the moment. They are participating in accelerators. They are working on their technologies. And so for us, it becomes important to create programs and opportunities that help support their entrepreneurial dreams as well. So that's what we're seeing, and I think we're going to continue seeing skills in data analysis, machine learning, AI, entrepreneurship, collaborative and interdisciplinary research, but also ethics. So not to leave behind many of our very skilled social scientists and humanists. We're going to see a lot of interdisciplinary work where it's not just the STEM folks, but folks who specialize in like a PhD in philosophy and ethics and social sciences merge with life sciences as well. So I would hope that employers continue to sort of open their minds and consider all sorts of backgrounds, because they're going to be needed as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. And one of the things that I'm as I listen to you, and again, whether this is nature versus nurture, or this is a result of what you've done or a result of the market, but 3 or 4 years ago, you start creating interdisciplinary programming and you start helping people explore different careers. 4 years later, now you have a lot of people interested in a lot broader, career pathways. So again, from an impact perspective, it seems to me whatever you guys are doing, it seems to be working. I hope a lot of those entrepreneurs stay here in the Maryland area. We've got a great state for entrepreneurship. We got a lot of support from groups like TEDCO, who I know do a lot of funding for early commercialization, and Fulton Bank, another one of our local companies that do a lot of support in the market. So I'm excited to hear there's a lot of more entrepreneurship coming out.
Absolutely.
And I think that also, there's an empowerment. Like when you teach people that there's more career options that they know about, and you teach people that the options are out there, you build confidence, and confidence, is a big part of becoming an entrepreneur. I mean, being confident that you can kind of stand out on your own and you can take an idea and possibly fail at it. That's divergent from a lot of traditional PhD pathways.
Yes, absolutely. And I think our job at the universities and those that support these sort of these folks and these PhDs, no matter what they want to do, our job is simply enabling and facilitating the connections and connecting the dots. They already have a
Yeah.
sense of what their skills are. It's sometimes simply a matter of confidence building. And again, that's how you create, I think, that inclusive culture and those opportunities and those connections. I don't see us as like a counseling center. We're a connection center. Let me connect you to so and so person who works here and there. That has so much more of an impact. I think that again puts focus on us as being good at social media, or being good connectors ourselves, or getting out of our comfort zones ourselves and modeling that for the students. I think that becomes important to do as well.
You're building a community, like, and I like that's why I think I resonate so much with you, because it's a lot of what we do at BioBuzz. We believe in the power of community and what we call hierarchy over hierarchy,
Mm,
right? It's the power of the different
yeah,
nodes that connect,
yeah.
and that become important, and then that's how you scale it too,
Mm,
because it doesn't all come down to a more hierarchical approach where everything kind of comes to
yeah,
a small group of people.
yeah,
You empower your community to achieve what they want,
yeah,
and to help each other do so.
yeah, and
And I
share
see that you all are doing
resources
that.
widely.
Yeah. I think you froze, or maybe I froze. Roshni, can you hear me? All right, we seem to be having a little technical difficulties. I'm not sure if that's on my end or Roshni's. So I hope everybody's enjoying this conversation. Again, I think we're going to continue to do more of these.
Did I just drop off?
There you go. Look at that. Right back at it.
Yeah,
That's how we do it.
yeah.
So, well, at least it happened at the end of our
I
conversation
know,
and not the
yeah.
beginning,
We
right?
said 30 minutes, so it did it at
Yeah.
exactly 30 minutes.
Well, is there anything that you want to close with, Roshni? I'll give you the floor to kind of close things out today.
No, I mean, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really can't wait to see what you're building. And I jumped on the opportunity because it's yet another opportunity to help a lot of people. So I'm really excited for the partnership and for, basically what we're doing in the DMV area. I think we're doing some good stuff. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And again, I'm excited to work with you on the talent lab and everything we're doing at BioBuzz, and continue to promote and help any way, to what you're doing at Hopkins. It's again, I've been a fan, and seeing what you've developed and grown there. It really is, again, as an entrepreneur, I love when people can kind of reshape the way things are done. And as a former Career Center user, when I was in college, I went to the Career Center. I was a biology major, and I was like, "Here's a book of things you can do with bio." Like, that was the extent of my career. Here's a book of that was like med school, nursing, research, and
Yeah.
I had no idea there was this whole other stuff we could do.
Yeah.
And so again, I can empathize with a lot of it, and what you're doing is really changing lives. So
Thank you. And kudos
um,
to, other folks. There's an entire community of folks. It's called the Graduate Career
mhm,
Consortium. Benedict here is a part of that. There's so many folks in so many different spaces doing that. We're not unique in
yeah,
that way where Johns Hopkins is doing career services. So shout out to everyone else who puts in all that hard work to be connectors and educators.
I love it. I love it. It takes a community,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Takes a village. Yes.
Well, wonderful. Well, listen, thank you so much. Have a happy holidays if we don't talk to you. And again, we'll get this. This will be this live today on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and we'll continue to host this on our website to share your message and to share this with other people into the future,
Awesome.
um, with the PH. So, uh,
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
all right. Thanks, Roshni.
Okay.
Enjoy the
Bye-bye.
day. All right. Bye bye.